All right, guys, just want to welcome back to the Everything College Football podcast. Today, I'll be doing a preview and prediction between the USF Bulls and the Memphis Tigers. Massive contest going down in the AAC. Despite Memphis's stunning loss to UAB on Saturday, this is still a monumental game. They can definitely get back into the thick of things when it comes to the playoff race, so it's certainly not the end of the road for the Tigers one bit. They will be 3.5-point underdogs at home. 68.5 is the total. 12 p.m. kickoff time. Getting things started with the USF offense on the Memphis defense. The USF offense is tremendous. This is a group that was able to win a couple of games early on in the season against Boise and Florida without having to do really a whole lot. This was not a team that was really thriving with what we're accustomed to seeing in terms of their run game being explosive, hitting consistent pass plays downfield. I know in both of those games they did pretty respectable, but I felt like when they got in the conference play, they'd really start to take over on the ground, and that's exactly what they've done the last 3 weeks. They've scored 48 plus points in 3 straight games. 259 rushing minimum in all those games, including 400 against Charlotte, another 300 against North Texas. They are just unreal on the ground so far. And when you have Byron Brown at quarterback, things are obviously so much easier. He's been great. 475, 6 scores on the ground, another 1,700 yards passing with 16 touchdowns. He's been sporadic with his accuracy. He's had some bad interceptions throughout the year, especially against Charlotte. There's a couple of turnovers there, and his accuracy was not great until he got into the red zone. When they got close to scoring, he would turn it up a notch with some accurate balls. Brown, though, the veteran, is tremendous. 232 pounds, has tremendous elusiveness, very good in the open field for having that much size. That's why he's such a great runner, and the things are going to start with his legs. Sam Franklin at running back, 275 and 3 scores. You have Nakia Davenport, who's been getting a lot longer leash now that Curtavious Norton has went down. Alvon Isaac, he, at first looked like he was going to be RB1 with, a couple of good games to start the year. He's kind of drifted back, but I mean, this really is by committee. It's a bit of a three-headed monster. They're not that skilled, I don't think, at running back compared to last year by any means, where I thought they were great. But these guys are all brand new to this program pretty much, and they're all putting on a show in the backfield. So this is a rushing attack. It's great. It's going to be hard to slow down for Memphis. This is a team that's been up and down against the run. For the most part, they've been really good this year. Against Arkansas, they got hammered in the first half. They were great in the second. UAB had 219 rushing, which is the season high they've allowed all year. They've also held opponents 4 times to under 120 rushing yards, though, this season. So it's a group where the jury seems to be certainly still out on. I think this is a defensive line that might be outclassed, though, in this one. You look at guys like William Whitlow, who's tremendous, Jalen Bell, Puda Walker. I mean, they do have some very good players up front on this defensive line. Taylor Burton, Ryan Buell, a few of those other guys. It's a respectable rotation. More importantly, though, for Memphis, this is a linebacking group that's tremendous. Sam Brumfield, the transfer, has been tremendous. He started at Middle Tennessee and then went to Virginia Tech. Now he's here on his third school, and he's been balling out this year as a leading tackler for the Tigers. He's also a heck of a playmaker when it comes to his 8.5 tackles for loss. He's got an interception as well, a bit of a do-it-all player for this defense. You also have in the middle next to him another phenomenal guy in DeMarco Ward and Drew Watts. Ward, he's more of a safety, but he does play a lot of box linebacker, so he's up alongside those guys. But it's really Brumfield and Watts who do the damage. Those guys are tremendous against the run, but Ward, he's a more efficient tackler. So you can almost call him a linebacker because he plays alongside those guys a lot, but he does have some plays and coverage that are less than stellar from him. I think that this secondary has a pretty good shot in this game. When you're playing USF, they're going to be looking to run the football, and they're going to spread things out. And they're going to open up the door for one-on-one matchups out wide for Chaz Nimrod and Keyshawn Singleton. Both those guys are big play receivers. The freshman Jeremiah Koger has been phenomenal the last 3 games. I mean, he's been very consistent. 4 receptions in each of those games, 75-plus yards, and he scored at least 1 touchdown as well after not playing over the first 4 games. So Koger has been tremendous, which makes this team even more deadly. And I think Christian Neptune's been pretty respectable as well. Back to the corners, though. Amari Cooper, Jaden David Denny's, that is. I think these guys are pretty solid, and I think they're going to be able to make this a competitive matchup out wide in man coverage. Kamari Wilson, maybe you've heard that. You haven't heard that name in a while, the ex-5-star recruit. Just came over. He's been really good this year, especially in coverage. Not a very efficient tackler. Has 10 missed tackles, which is second on the team. But he does work against the run. And again, he's pretty solid in coverage. Chris Brassey, he's going to be their slot, who's been a big liability for them. So I think that USF's definitely going to have a matchup advantage. I've just seen too many times in the past, Ryan Silverfield defenses just not be that stellar. And I think in the AAC, when it comes to playing tougher offenses, you usually just get dusted at some point. I know Memphis has really improved over the years compared to where they used to be. But I think this is just a matchup nightmare for them where they're going to struggle to defend the run. I think they're also going to give up some big plays in the pass game. Getting Byron Brown to the floor is going to be very tough. And this is an offensive line for USF that's been great in conference play as well. So I think they're just a step ahead of everybody else. The pass rush isn't awful, but it's really, again, Brumfield making plays for them. 3.5 sacks this year. He leads the team in that category as well. They only have 2 sacks in the last 4 games. They were able to tee off on some weaker opponents early on in the year, but they're not really finding much as of late, especially since they've entered conference play. So I think this is a tough matchup for them overall. And moving to the other side of things, you're going to have to point to this Memphis offense to try and keep pace. And right now, we're not sure who's going to be the quarterback. Brendan Lewis, he ended up departing against UAB after just a couple of drives with a leg injury. And that could be problematic, right? Because he did not return in that game. And that means they had to turn to a younger guy in A.J. Hill. And that means you have to really tailor this offense around him. He's not a guy that really has much of a skill set as a runner like Lewis, 6'4", 215. He's a bigger framed guy. A young quarterback, did not have a single rushing attempt. And Lewis, he does that exceptionally well. So I can certainly trust Silverfield to transition this offense in a week to pair it to his skill set. But Hill is a very young guy, a freshman who made his season debut against UAB in relief. Played quite well, 175 yards, completed about 52%. Did have a pick, did have a touchdown as well. Made a great throw on 4th down to give them a shot there late in the game where they got down to the 1-yard line and couldn't finish things off to tie it up and send it to overtime. But Hill, I think he's going to do fine despite being a very young quarterback. This is an offense where they're really going to tailor it around his skill set. They're going to look to hopefully optimize a quick passing game. Cortez Braham, their leading receiver, is tremendous, 491 and 5 touchdowns on the year. Jamari Hawkins, right behind him, is an explosive guy. Barcelo Busey has done well this season. Brady Cluse is nice out of the slot. So you have a handful of different weapons you can use. But you're going to have to most likely lean on this run game. Sutton Smith, the lead running back. This guy's great, 480 yards and 6 touchdowns. He can do damage on special teams as well. A nice do-it-all player. He had a kick return touchdown against UAB, so he's a bit of a do-it-all player that's going to certainly get a lot of touches in this one. Greg DeRozas Jr. right behind him. He had that explosive run late in the 4th quarter that set him up with like that chance I just alluded to potentially send it to overtime. He had 200-plus yards against FAU the other day in 3 touchdowns. This is a guy whose production is sometimes inconsistent, but when he does produce at a high level, it is impressive what he can do. So I think these 2 running backs can certainly carry the load, even with this young quarterback, and give them a nice chance. For USF, though, I think this defense, kind of like their offense, is just a level above all their opponents when it comes to what you're typically accustomed to seeing in this conference, mainly because of the linebackers, Jalen Schuler and Mac Harris coming into the year. I figured this would be one of the better duos in the country just because they're experienced veterans who've been here a couple of years now. And Harris has been great, phenomenal against the run, great tackler, does work in coverage as well. Schuler is not as good in coverage, but he's very standoutish against the run. He can make a lot of plays happen as well in the backfield. I love what they have at linebacker. The defensive line for USF has done great against the run this season. No real standout. It's really been a by-committee approach in terms of who can step up here and there. Josh Salazar, I think, is probably maybe your best guy. Devin Lee, Trayvon Mitchell, Denard Flowers. And then you have DJ Harris, who's a veteran who I would like to see more production out of because I feel like he should be playing at a higher level than he is. Big problem with this defensive line is they just have a lot of missed tackles. There's no one here that really stands out in terms of being consistent in that regard. I think that's definitely a problem. But this run defense has not folded once this year for the most part. They had issues against Miami. That's a physical offensive line with a lot of size. No real shock there. But everyone else they've done well against. Boise, Florida, conference play, no one's been able to do a whole lot. And for USF, they started slow against North Texas. They also had some turnovers that were allowing the Mean Green to cook. But as that game wore on, their defense really started to take a toll on North Texas. That's a great passing attack that they started to hold in check. They didn't give up much on the ground as the game went on either. And it was hard for the Mean Green to find explosives, and that's what that's what USF does. This defense has been put in some bad positions this year because they love to turn the ball over for some reason. That's been a big problem for USF. But the Bulls have been splendid at that themselves. 17 total takeaways. They had 5 of them against North Texas. I think this is a group that is battle-tested but steps up when they need to. I like the corners and Jarvis Lee, James Chenault. Those guys have been very respectable. Rico Watson's a bit of a patroller on this defense. He's a bit of a do-it-all guy that I'm very impressed with this year. Deshaun Rucker, a veteran corner, I think he can hold up out wide. And then the aforementioned Lee's been really holding down the slot. He's been a little inconsistent in coverage, but I think he's really good against the run, and he's a playmaker overall. And then Taven Ward is probably the best guy in the back end at safety, does a lot of things for them. Fred Gaskin, on the other hand, who's been playing a lot of reps, has not been as great. So there's certainly matchups they can take advantage of. And I do want to point out, they're 125th in pass defense, right? But I don't think that tells the full story. This is a team that plays with a lot of pace on offense, which leads to opponents trailing, and they're going to be searching for answers through the air. And I think the biggest way to measure this was against North Texas, where they started off sluggish against the pass, and they really started to turn things up. I know UNT had like a 50-yard touchdown in the second half, but they were able to come up with strings of stops to allow them to win by almost 30 points. So I don't think this is very accurate. I think it's very skewed because these teams, again, they're throwing a lot of attempts. North Texas had 47 attempts. FAU had 58, and they weren't giving up many explosives in that one. So I think this is a very good secondary that you can look at more than just the numbers. They also have 10 interceptions, so it's not that bad of a group. The numbers are definitely skewed in that regard. I think Memphis, regardless of who the quarterback is not going to be able to have a great, consistent passing attack. I think Hill, though, again, is going to have this offense tailored around him if he starts. If Lewis plays, then it's going to be much more of a run-oriented approach. And I'm not sure how that's going to work because USF, again, they've been very dominant against the run this year. That only game they really struggled in was the Miami contest, and they've been lighting it up in conference play all year. So I think USF, this is a defense that's a lot better than most people might be aware of. Leads us to the final thoughts on the prediction. I think USF's going to go on the road, and I think they're going to win this game by more than 2.5. They're going to easily cover that spread. I think they'll keep it a little bit closer if Lewis does play. But I just love this team. I think their defense is a lot better than most in conference that we've seen over the years, and I think their offense is tremendous when it comes to their balance. The run game is a slashing group behind a physical offensive line, playmaking wide receivers, and I think Memphis can match up well in the secondary, but I just don't think they're going to be able to find those stops on the ground. And I trust the Bulls in pretty much every game in AAC play to find more than the opposition. So if you want to get into a shootout, that's fine. USF will get a stop, a turnover or two, and make things happen. Now, I definitely worry about the Bulls turning the ball over because that hasn't been a problem for them throughout the year. And at some point, that's probably going to come back to bite them. But if they can protect the football, much like they did last week against FAU, it's going to lead to big results, and they won 48-13. So if they protect the football, which I envision that's going to continue to be a thing for them, I don't expect them to give it away like they did against Charlotte and North Texas, and they still won those games quite handily. So this is a very good USF team. I think going on the road here against Memphis, it's going to be major. It's unfortunate the Tigers lost to UAB because that means that they blew an opportunity for these two teams to be on College game day. This is still a monumental contest in conference play, which I see USF at the end of the day rolling on the road. So, for today's episode, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.